Sowing the Seeds of Peace examines the path to peace between Israel and the Islamic world. This presentation was created to provide an overview of the history of the Jewish people in their homeland. It also examines the Arab-Israeli conflict and offers a recipe for peace. While the video's message was created using examples from Canada, it is universal. We hope it will be helpful in your own efforts to promote peace in your community. Understanding the relationship of the Jewish people to their homeland is essential to achieve peace based on truth and mutual respect. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Jews have been indigenous to the land for more than 3,500 years. Many occupiers have claimed the land of Israel over the past 2,000 years, but only Jewish sovereignty has ever been recognized. Jerusalem has been the capital of the Jewish people for more than 3,000 years. Jewish temples were erected long before Christianity and Islam existed. One of the most significant events in Jewish history was the Roman conquest of the Jewish state and the destruction of the temple. Nevertheless, Jews continued to live on their land without interruption. In an attempt to erase Jewish history, the Romans renamed the land Palestina. The name referred to the land and not to any particular group of people living on it. During the 2,000-year exile, exiled Jews yearned to return to their homeland. From 313 to 636, the land was occupied by the Christian Byzantine Empire. The conflict between Jews and Muslims began with the founding of Islam because Jews refused to convert to Islam. Islamic scripture has many passages disparaging Jews. After roughly 400 years of Islamic occupation of Jerusalem, Christians and Muslims fought a series of wars for control of the Holy Land. Jews were persecuted by both religions, largely attributable to replacement theology, which has long fueled anti-Semitism. Further evidence of Jewish indigeneity is the fact that Muslims built the Dome of the Rock on top of the holiest Jewish site, the Temple Mount. The Ottoman Turkish warriors for Islam were the next occupiers. Although there was a Jewish majority in Jerusalem, they continued to be subjected to persecution, discrimination, and famine. Since the Ottomans were allies to the Germans in World War I, they were replaced by the British Mandate. Following the 1917 Balfour Declaration and the 1920 San Remo Conference in 1922, the League of Nations confirmed the commitment to a Jewish homeland. Britain was given the mandate to fulfill this promise, but instead gave 2/3 of the land to their Hashemite allies from the Arabian Peninsula who still rule over Jordan. Britain's bias in favor of the Arabs resulted in restrictions on Jews fleeing the Holocaust. In fact, the British High Commissioner appointed a Palestinian leader, a Nazi ally, as the Grand Mufti of Jerusalem. The Holocaust, the worst genocide in human history, was the culmination of generations of anti-Jewish discrimination. 6 million Jews died because of hate. Even today, there is Holocaust denial, including countries that refuse to take responsibility for their participation. In 1947-48, the UN partitioned the remainder of the promised Jewish homeland into a Jewish state and an Arab state. While the partition gave the Jews far less than promised, they accepted it. The Arabs, however, refused partition and waged war against the emerging Jewish state. The decision to choose war over peace created the Palestinian refugee crisis. In response to the establishment of Israel, the Arab countries forced their Jewish citizens into exile. This ethnic cleansing resulted in death and dispossession, with as many as 900,000 Jewish refugees. Dispossessed and persecuted, they fled lands where Jews had lived for over 2,500 years. The Farhud in Iraq is just one example of anti-Jewish violence that happened across the Arab world. The experience was much the same in every Arab country. Regrettably, the world has shown little interest in this part of the story. Refugees are a regrettable consequence of war. While Israel integrated refugees from Arab expulsion and the Holocaust, the Arab countries chose to put Palestinians in refugee camps. As a result, the Palestinian refugee problem continues to be an obstacle to peace. Today, with few exceptions, there are essentially no Jews living in Arab countries. Ancient cultures have been erased. Ask yourself, who benefits from keeping people in refugee camps generation after generation? While Palestinians have received more foreign aid than any other people in history, many still live in 58 refugee camps in their territory, and in Arab countries, Palestinian people have seen minimal benefit from this aid because Palestinian leaders have embezzled billions and used billions more to build terror infrastructure rather than providing for the needs of their people. The Israel-Palestine conflict has not been resolved for three principal reasons. First, the UN, dominated by undemocratic nations, has repeatedly demonstrated anti-Israel bias. Secondly, the Palestinians themselves have rejected multiple attempts to resolve the conflict. Finally, Iran and several Arab nations continue to provide weapons, funding, and political support for terrorism against Israel. In 2008, Israeli Prime Minister offered the Palestinians virtually everything they asked for. Remarkably, they refused. The only plausible explanation is that Palestinians continue to deny that the Jews have any legitimate claim. They continue to cling to maximalist positions such as from the river to the sea. Since 1948, Israel has built a modern, prosperous, democratic state. The Palestinians have chosen another path. It is no surprise that Israel is only willing to support a Palestinian state that is also democratic and committed to peace. October 7th was not a crime of passion or in response to something Israel did, but was born out of the systemic demonization of the Jewish people and delegitimization of Israel by an anti-Western, anti-democratic terrorist group, Hamas, and its allies and sponsors. The victims of this brutal attack included parents, children, and elders, Jews, Druze, Muslims, Canadians, Americans, Thai, Filipinos, and other innocent civilians. Hamas, part of the Muslim Brotherhood, shares its virulent hostility towards Western society. However, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and other terrorist groups are the result of a campaign to demonize Jewish people and delegitimize Israel in mosques, schools, media, and throughout Palestinian society. Palestinian textbooks, mostly funded through UNRWA by Western countries, are full of anti-Jewish incitement and glorification of violence. If this was a land dispute, as is widely misunderstood, it would have been settled a long time ago. 22 Arab nations comprise 99% of the land, and yet can't accept the existence of the tiny Jewish state, which comprises 1% of the land.
And I quote, God sent Hitler to help Jews reach the promised land. Reality is the good friend of our friend Benjamin Netanyahu, who in 2012 they compared Netanyahu.
There is nothing wrong with peacefully advocating for Palestinians or for peace. However, many protesters have engaged in violent rhetoric and activities that are incompatible with peace. For example, the slogan, "From the river to the sea," is a call to arms to eliminate the state of Israel. The slogan, "Globalize the Intifada," is a call for the overthrow of Western civilization. Contrary to anti-Israel propaganda, the establishment of the modern state of Israel is not colonization. It's the return of the indigenous people, the Jews, to their homeland. These accusations are part of a campaign to demonize the Jewish people and delegitimize Israel. Rather than working for peace, those that hate Israel prevent peace by maliciously distorting the truth. On this small piece of land, two states are only possible if both states recognize the legitimate rights of the other and commit to peaceful coexistence between two democratic states. Rather than continuing the same failed policies that continue to fuel the conflict, the UN and the nations of the world need to work with the Palestinians to create a prosperous democratic country based on the rule of law. Reforming schools and other institutions to eliminate anti-Jewish incitement must be central to this effort. Courageous leaders realize peace is essential to achieve a positive future for their people. It is time to build on existing peace between Israel and several Arab nations. It's our duty, each one of us and society as a whole, to speak out against all discrimination and hate. That is, if we truly want a peaceful, just, and inclusive society. At this particular time, with Jews under attack, we must stand up against anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial. Mossab Hassan Youssef, who has intimately witnessed Hamas atrocities, tells audiences around the world that anyone making excuses for Hamas or giving it legitimacy is complicit in their crimes. He cautions that Hamas is not just a threat to Israel or the Jewish people, but is a threat against all civilization. As this photo demonstrates, Israel is a multi-faith and multicultural society. Their goal is to live in peace with each other and Israel's neighbors. The challenge to Canada and the world is to help them achieve that goal. Thank you for being part of that effort.